Why is everyone talking about Clubhouse? Did you even get your invite yet? And is it time to disrupt the music industry again? This person thinks so. Happy 2021. Seems like old times. Hello there, and welcome to Music Industry City's Tuesday Talkies, where we discuss what's going on in the world of music business. I'm Peter Schwing, and joining me as always, my co-host, Sam Tall. If there's something you'd like to chime in about, join us in the chat or leave a comment below. Don't be shy, it's okay. A couple things really quick before we get on to today's show. You noticed that the Duke was not in that opening square there. He moved. And by move, I mean he moved to Monday kickoff. So teamed up again. He's back together again with Aisha Adamo for the Monday kickoff Motivate and Create. That show is fantastic. It's a great way to start your week. So I do highly encourage you to check that out. It's again 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over every Monday. So let's get today what we're going to be talking about. We have a special guest, Nick Cianfaglione. I am totally butchering that name. He's going to tell us how to pronounce his name. He is the founder and CEO of Artist Republik and is considered one of the most innovative young entrepreneurs in the industry. His decentralized networking and management platform is valued at over $5 million and gaining quite the attention. I look forward to hearing more about this. But first, Clubhouse. Are you on it, and what do you think of it? I know we have some opinions, so let's turn to Sam Tall with his thoughts on the app. Sam.
Hey, Peter. How you doing?
Hey. Besides the fact my mic, I think, was muted before, I'm good. How you doing? Welcome to 2021.
We can't start with perfect everything. We have to have our gremlins out of the way now.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, and even somebody, I was just looking over the chat. What's up, Andy? Andy's over there on Twitch, and he was like, hey, lost audio. And there we go. I mean, it's the way to start off 2021. And I was saying, it's like, 2021, meet the new year, same as the old year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing's different. I remember I went to bed somewhat early on New Year's Eve and completely let it blow me by. And when I woke up, it was just the same as it was before. Nothing's different.
I celebrated New Year's Eve 4 times. I was in alt space, VR chat, all the parties, all the New Year's parties in virtual reality, and we were club hopping. And the running joke is, it's like, how many different time zones are we going to celebrate New Year's? And the parties, every hour on the hour, it was a new celebration. Yep. So no matter what time zone you were in, and it was really unique. It was really interesting. The fact of like, hey, I'm hanging, because you're so used to like, hey, Happy New Year's to the people standing around you. But then it's like, you're in this virtual room and you're standing around people. And I'm like, yay. And they're like, oh yeah, Happy New Year. I still got another 2 hours to go.
Well, right. And then all the folks that were obviously, kicking off things early in Asia. And meanwhile, I'm over in LA just waking up on the 31st. So it's like, living in the future and the past at the same time.
Exactly. It's Schrodinger's New Year's.
Is it the first or is it not the first, depending on where you look?
So, well, speaking of this technology, and another plug for VR, because Music Industry City is kind of doing this VR stuff. We're over in Alt Space. We're doing these networking events. So, and they're being successful. We've had over 100 people in each. In the first 2 networking events, we've had over 150 and 180 people roll through in virtual reality. Yeah, it's crazy.
Nothing.
It's awesome. I mean, I can't do that on a good day in Zoom. Yeah, because we're all zoomed out.
I can't even fathom what 150 some odd people in a Zoom room would feel like. It would just be chaos. Well, and frankly, that's actually a decent segue into talking about Clubhouse. And
it
what
would
it's
be
like
Clubhouse.
To have people in a Clubhouse.
I think we've been doing this long enough that somebody knows where to tip the ball up, get alley-oop, and then tip it in. So
it's like we have a real show, Peter.
Exactly. So, basically, hey, what's up, Steele? I also want to give a shout out to Steele that chimed in there. So, Sam, I know you got a lot to say. I'm going to let you have the big screen for a moment. I might chime in. I might pop in. So,
Yep.
And let's keep it there. So here you go, man.
So I'm going to set the scene for everybody. So at the start of 2020, Clubhouse was just the name of a software engineering project management thing, completely separate thing. When I was looking into this and doing a little bit of research, I found like several apps called Clubhouse. Obviously, it's a fairly generic name. Clubhouse, as we know it, the app that we're talking about today is actually not the name of the company. It's just the name of the app made by a company. And it seems to have kind of come out of stealth around April, right when everyone was hyper focused on live experiences, and most of the tech journalism like TechCrunch was mostly discussing video and remote work type apps. So a social audio app was like a really curious thing, but it was brand new, not even really out in the App Store yet. It was only on Test Flight, which is a sort of an app beta private sort of thing that Apple owns. They acquired it several years ago. And it's kind of where you stage your test apps for people to download and then break. But almost a month later, they'd raised $12 million and signed up, nearly 2,000 famous people, venture capitalists, athletes, music artists, actors. And then by July, in The Verge, they were already digging into the co-founders and like, who are these people that started this $12 million raise valued at $100 million, and it's not even publicly available to everyone yet. There's some concerns around some of the co-founders' track record and pro data collection, and kind of what that implies for a bunch of people signing up for a brand new app without really kind of too much history, too much knowledge of what it's going to be. But of course, a lot of us got first familiar to Clubhouse around the end of September, beginning of October, and I think, Peter, that was around the time that you started mentioning it to me, or maybe a bit after that. But it kind of had a run-in with the typical internet issues around content moderation, inflammatory speech. Specifically, there was some discussion of anti-Semitism in Black communities, and that turned into a platform to espouse anti-Semitism and not a debate about the why we should not be anti-Semitic, which is a real shame, but kind of just how the internet goes. Anyone who's been on the internet for any decent span of time knows that's how the internet works.
Right.
So there wasn't a reporting feature at that point.
Right. And here's the thing. I mean, I already used the Schrodinger reference today, so I can't use it again. So I have to go with kind of like, I don't know if I'm on the fence, and I really don't know which way I'm leaning to. Like, is this going to find its legs and become great, or is this going to just fizzle out? Or is it going to just die overnight? Like, it's going to be like one of those like turntable FM kind of situations where it was like, it's hot for a month. Is it Meerkat? Is it something like that? And going back to that $100 million valuation, it was in May, $100 million valuation with under 5,000 users. And I actually
like very, very limited availability.
Right. And here's the thing. I still found that to be, I thought it was like, that's it? Only 100 million? I found that to be odd, because just the way it's like the paper napkin thing. It's kind of like, here's my idea. Oh, let's go through it. I mean, let's go back to Quibi. Billion.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Katzenberg, could just pump as much money as he wanted and kind of like, take his name around town. This seems like maybe a micro version of that, where like a Pinterest executive goes and to Andreessen Horowitz and says, "Hey, can I have some money to do a thing?"
Right. But the thing is, it's like the money isn't going to create the proof of concept, the valuation. And I think we're coming to that part. We're coming to terms with that in technology now. I think that long ride is over.
I think this is kind of like one of the latest versions of this overvaluation of a breath of air kind of thing that we saw a lot of. Back like 8-10 years ago, it was like nonsense how much money was flying around, and it's only gotten to be more money for less, proof of concept. But I think at this point we can say that Clubhouse is fairly well proven as a concept, with over 600,000 registered users by the end of last year, according to the New York Times, and that growth is astounding, and it's obviously indicative of a massive trend in the way people want to connect, and sort of a hunger for connection like this. But it also makes it a lot harder to keep a handle on the kind of hate speech,
right,
and just like unqualified opinions on sensitive subjects that the internet just loves.
Because once again, I look at it as two different things. It's the modern era party chat line.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, and I think you might even still be too young to really have lived during, like, the party chat line. You call in and you have 8 other people on the call and everything. And there was a moderator. There was, in those party chat lines, there was always a moderator that could kick people. So what we're talking about is, we're talking about a platform that people can still hide. And now what you're doing is, instead of just being the comment section by typing, it's now it's an oral comment section. And that could be, and that's going along with what you were talking about. It's like, okay, now we have to moderate this. And, how soon does it get off the rails? Somebody asked the questions, like, I posted, was like, what was the great thing that Clubhouse did? I'm like, well, it's marketing 101, the Studio 54 method.
Mm-hmm.
It says, here's all the celebrities, and no, you can't get in. And then
they're obsessed with the famous people.
Right. So the psychology behind that. But now you're talking about, like, and there was already the concern that, like, okay, once it becomes mainstream, the celebrities aren't going to be wanting to be there. I mean, Joe Budden's there. I mean, isn't he on that like 24 hours? He's on it 24/7. So, but here's the thing. The Vulture just released an article in digital last week, print this week. The title was, "Clubhouse is dangerously close to becoming the new internet wasteland."
I did see that one, and it rang true. And the thing I think that resonated for me was, obviously, with a lot of the hype and exclusivity was around, like, here's a limited group of very important people who can have private conversations amongst themselves in this space, and they don't need to necessarily have each other's phone number. They don't need to coordinate that much. But now you have a bunch of unfamous people who are in the Clubhouse. And that democratizes the conversation a lot. And what you get are people with, much better information than people who are removed from reality, but also much worse.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, if you can create private rooms, that there's can be, the locked door kind of way, the key. Right. I mean, the gatekeeper, how are they going to monetize the type of content, and it's also, people tend to go off the rails, like discussion topics will end up going off the rails. So is it a novelty that I'm just going to sit here and I'm like, hey, I'll have my earbuds in and put it on speakerphone and just listen like I'm eavesdropping on a conversation? So you get that behind the scenes kind of vibe. But how long does that last?
Well, and who really wants to be behind the scenes at, like, a small club gig versus like a big arena, right? It's like a totally different vibe when you have, Kevin Hart and Mark Andreessen, who invested in it, and legitimate celebrities having conversations with other legitimate celebrities, and there's like 1,000 people just listening to this conversation. That's kind of cool. Having like 100 people listen to, a couple of, friends talk about nothing is like, is that really all that interesting? I mean, maybe to some extent, but I mean, like, just
Jerry Seinfeld made an entire career off of it.
A show about nothing, exactly. I mean, look, as long as the muting and the bouncing and the report, user reporting features are reactive to inflammatory commentary and just like unwelcome parties to the line, it's going to keep getting trolled. It's kind of like Zoom at the beginning, like in March or April, before Zoom had created a whole bunch of like security tools, and there was the whole phenomenon of Zoom bombing. It's kind of like a very mundane version of that, where people are just dropping into Clubhouse rooms and promoting their stuff, and
Exactly.
it's like that's not what it's there for. Or like, hey, I'm just going to join a room and hype up my thing and then leave. It's like, well, you wouldn't do that in public. You'd get barred from even entering the space.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's going to be really interesting. I say we revisit this one in like at the end of Q1.
I think
let's
so.
See where we stand.
Here's kind of like my prognosis, right?
Okay.
If I had a friend actually reach out and say, do you think that Clubhouse is going to supplant Facebook? Do you think there's a chance that this becomes like the new main social network? I'm like, not even a chance, not even remotely a chance. But that said, I think it speaks to a larger sort of sentiment that's growing, and it's really abstract at the moment, but it's obviously widespread that people are pretty fed up, or at least bored with Facebook. And even Instagram is starting to get a little bit just bogged down by its own weight. And it feels like once things reach a certain scale in the digital kind of community space, it tends to fall apart because it loses its original magic. So I think maybe there's room for something about micro communities, something about self-police sort of niche communities. Clubhouse has a little bit of that, and that's what makes it feel special. Yeah. TikTok obviously has a little bit of that with their sort of like micro communities that crop up around certain topics and subjects, and makes it very egalitarian. Good content rises very fast. But Clubhouse, I don't think is the answer, but obviously I'm open to be proven wrong.
And I just got an alert from Clubhouse. And scene. All right. Thanks, Sam. We're going to loop back in. I'm going to get Nick up here, and we'll loop back in to continue the conversation. All right. So we're testing this out. This is an experiment in live streaming and live broadcast. Our special guest, Nick, is his name, and Disruption is his game. So he's developed an artist management and distribution platform, and we're going to bring him up on stage right now. So we haven't even tested the streams. Everything was a little tied up, and like, boom. So let's see if this works. Nick.
Hey,
it works. We have audio.
Bingo.
Nice. Fantastic. I do have to turn you up just a little bit here. How are you? Happy New Year.
I'm good. Yeah, sorry, I was a little late arriving to the stream. I've been having a crazy morning. Welcome to the tech game. You wake up every single morning and there's a different thing going wrong. I guarantee you, I don't know if you guys work on Slack, but I felt bad for the Slack team yesterday because Slack was down yesterday, and I was like, wow, I know exactly how that feels. That's every day in tech world.
Oh yeah, and I remember there was a few years ago. I mean, this goes back maybe like 5 years, and Google went down, like all of Google, not just like a section, like basically Gmail, Drive, Duo at the time, every single thing went down. And it was like around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, staff, go home, because we all worked in Google Sheets, and it was like, we can't do anything, like go home. And basically, like the internet just kind of like the bandwidth opened up because nobody could do anything. So all email shut down. And yeah, I mean, this year started off crazy with the technology. And yesterday I was even basically like just before I went live, all of a sudden it's like, here's another technical issue. Here's another, and my computer over here is like, oh, and the fans aren't working. And I'm like, what do you mean the fans aren't? You need to update your BIOS. I'm like, I just did that last year. And by last year, I mean the last week of December.
Yeah.
So,
yep. That's tech world.
Yeah, exactly. So welcome to Tech World 2021. So I mean, I was checking out more about like Artist Republik, and what I want to do here is, before we can get into like this whole background, I'm going to put you up on the big screen here and give us the 60-second pitch. Just let us know what it is and tell us about it. All right, here we go.
Yeah. So pretty much Artist Republik, in the most simplest of forms, is we are digitalizing the 360 deal of a record label. But we are more importantly doing it for the independent artists. So I've been in the music industry now for 8-9 years. And I really was working on the independent side. And I looked back at it and I said, look, there's a reason that the 360 deal works so well for the large record labels, because it's efficient. You can go to one place and it works. Problem with the music tech industry is it's too segmented. And for the independent artists, they have to go to 18,000 different websites to get 18,000 different resources. And so what Artist Republik does is we're taking that 360 deal and that centralization, and we're bringing it to the music tech space. So now an independent artist from anywhere in the world can access production, distribution, marketing, live shows, networking, everything without leaving our website, the same way you would be able to access that if you signed to Sony Records and you never had to leave that building.
Right on. Oh, fantastic. So how did you get into that? I mean, where did your career path get you into this space?
Yeah. So like I said, I've been in the music industry now for about 8-9 years. So I started in the concert promotion side, actually as a freshman in high school. I was hosting concerts for fun. And then that became my full-time job. And by the time I graduated high school, I had about 75, 80 concerts under my belt. Went off to college, and up there, I got more into the music marketing side of things. And so that was really when I started to see Artist Republik grow, because the music marketing company, I was representing over 500 independent artists from across the world. And at that point, I was able to really see the depth of how screwed up the music industry was. Because now I've been running their marketing, I've been, managing their concerts, and I was able to sit back and be like, wow, this is really, really screwed up.
It's I was at NYU a few years ago talking to the MBAs there, and they were talking about licensing. They're like, oh, we want to build this platform. We want to do this licensing and this licensing. And they have these giant whiteboards that like the full room is a whiteboard. I'm like, all right, it's going to take up the whole space here. But let me show you how licensing works in the music industry. And it was with the series of like 20 arrows and circles and boxes. And they all looked and they said, how do you get anything done? So
exactly.
It's like, that whole thing about like disrupting the industry. So, that's where you were going into. And, when you talk about disrupting the industry, you're going to have people pushing back. You're going to have the naysayers. And this is that education for people that are looking to start their own business, or even if they want to do a label, if they want to do a license, or anything they want to do within the music industry or any industry, but you're going to get that pushback. But What is it, that mindset, like, how do you approach it when somebody's, saying like, okay, here's my roadblock?
So I think the naysayers and the people that are saying no, I think is the best thing to kind of dive into right now, because literally we are in the middle of an investment funding round right now. Like literally for the rest of the day, I have investor meetings, and with investor meetings comes a lot of no's. Like there's the famous saying by Bill Gates, I forget the exact numbers, but he's like, I got 948 no's, but it only took me 52 yeses to become a billionaire. And that's kind of the reality, is the majority of you're running a business is going to be no's. And it's funny because, I get no's all the time for so many different reasons, especially in this company, because we're working with when we started the funding round, we were going after a lot of music industry firms and investments. And they all said the same thing of like, look, we make too much money off the status quo. We don't want to invest in you. We're not ready to invest in the nail that's going to be hammered into our coffin. And I think the greatest thing to anyone really on saying no's is, like, for me, I like store those no's. Like I have a list of people that like sits in front of me on a whiteboard of like people that said I couldn't do something. And
I have a similar list, but it's for other reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people really just need to like compartmentalize that, because like when you succeed, it's so great to look at that list for so many reasons. Like the greatest example of this is when Airbnb went public the other day. There was a guy that tweeted and was like, I had the ability to invest $50,000 in Airbnb's seed round. He goes, I found out today that would have been worth $80 million. I really screwed up.
Well, along the line, the guy who bought a pizza with Bitcoin in 2012. Yeah, the $5 million pizza. So I have a question, because going through looking up more about and everything, and and I know Sam is going to perk up when he hears this question. We're going to go full circle here get everybody on the screen. But you're one of the things you like talking about is like how artist management can evolve and be reinvented to like favor the artist. And that's always that saying within the music industry. It's like, how do we favor the artist? What can we do to favor the artist? And I'm going to start off with the devil's advocates here. Coming from an old manager side is like, well, what about, favor the artist? But as a management side, artist management. So if I'm an artist manager, I'm working on commission. So I want to favor the artist, but I also need to favor myself too, because I'm working on commission. So how are you looking at like the artist management? How can artist management evolve and be reinvented?
Yeah. So, I mean, so many of my close friends are managers, and it's funny because the first thing that I usually comes across when I pitch this idea and I'm talking with other people that are managers, they're like, so you want to replace my job? It's like, well, no, not exactly. I want to better your job. Because I've always said that we're not here to compete with the music industry. We're here to be synergistic to the music industry. It's just right now we have to compete because we don't have, like, when we launch this thing, and that's what a lot of people realize too when you launch companies, is you don't have enough traction to really get people to partner with you. So you kind of have to build stuff your own. And then once you get enough, of like whoa factor, people are like, okay, like we tried to partner with a bunch of distribution companies before this thing was real, all the major independents, and they turned us down. And I think it's funny because now they're starting to copy us and roll out features that we have because they're probably thinking, oh crap, we should have partnered. And so, but going back to that management idea, that's the thing, is we're not here to compete. We're really here to make it more effective. And how you do that is, for the artist that doesn't want a manager, we want to provide them with the resources to self-manage themselves. But we know 100% artists do not want to be self-managed forever. If they're blowing up, it's just not efficient to be self-managed forever. And the difference is, like I usually say, is there's a difference between when a manager hires an individual, like hires the artist, where the other difference is the artist hiring the manager. We want a world where the artist is hiring the manager, because where does the creative control lie? And then once we do that, we want to be able to provide a platform that managers can use to then actually facilitate the growth of their artists more effectively. So we actually want managers to be plugged into the network. Mm-hmm. We want record labels to be using the network. And that's how we're building it going forward.
All right. So, well, I am going to bring up somebody that back on screen who happens to be a manager. So I know we can dive deeper into this conversation. So, Sam, I know you've been paying attention and everything. I know you love this kind of stuff, new technologies and everything, and anything that we can do to, help support the artists, help support, make life easier. Having that all-in-one kind of system, help with booking, management, licensing, distribution, all that, is, if you can just have it in one ecosystem, that's a great thing. So, what are your, I know you've been listening. I know you have probably dying with a question or two. So
first off, I love that this is a topic that we're talking about. And I love that it's something that's kind of like happening now, because it's something that's been trying to happen for the better part of a decade. And I remember being a NYU senior doing my capstone project in music entrepreneurship on this idea of like an artist management suite and fixing the gaps that occurred between, distribution platforms and, you're sort of like your artist growth or master tour or other sort of like live logistics kind of tool set. They're just, it's such a complicated space that the most responses that I've seen, especially from the Artist Managers Connect community, is like, yeah, just use Google Suite or Google Workspace and Asana and like a smattering of tools that kind of like are simple to use, and I just cobbled together my own solution. So I want to kind of have Nick kind of, if you can, tell me why now is the right time for something like this, and what you're doing that kind of cracks that nut.
Yeah. So why now? Well, first off, the music industry has never been more embracive of technology than it is right now. One piece. Also, there's two things that we're doing that crack the nut. One, we're staying simple. I always say Tesla made a better engine. They didn't make a better wheel. Like, don't reinvent something that doesn't need to be reinvented. I think a lot of problems with the music tech space is people over innovate and then fail. Like, I love everything going towards blockchain and crypto. Like, I've been getting into it and trying to figuring it out and tracking that market. I think it's great for a lot of things. But I've seen a lot of music tech companies fail because they try to launch a company based on crypto and blockchain, and artists don't care. They just want to be music artists. They just want to be and create content. And so that's one thing with us is we keep it simple. We don't overcomplicate. The other thing is we are the same thing as every other company. We're a massive data house. The thing about us is the record labels, when you go to Sony, there's a reason they're efficient. They manage everything, which means they have the resources of everything all in one location. The problem with the space is when you distribute through DistroKid or TuneCore, or any of the major independents, they don't have event branding data. They don't have Instagram data. And so the thing with us is we're built like a record label. So because we have all those connections, we're able to build stuff that others physically can't. And we're able to provide that simplicity through AI and machine learning to literally actually make it easier. Because that's what a human would be doing is you would be, if you were managing an artist, you'd be looking at like, okay, where's their streaming numbers from? Where are their ticketing data from? Where should I route this person's tour? The problem with the music tech space is the data's too, segmented and no one has a collection of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, couple of things there. I mean, and we were always talking about like the future, and we look at like the technology and everything, and you heard us talking about Clubhouse, and like where's that going to go, and and with what you're doing, and and you touched upon something that with crypto and blockchain, and I am a big fan of both. Okay, they need to work things out. I'm finally happy with my Bitcoin wallet right now. Okay, after 3 years, I'm finally
it's been rallying.
I'm finally happy. It's finally over what it was 3 years ago when I just when the crash. But blockchain is key. I'm a super fan of blockchain, but with crypto, it's like trying to explain crypto to musicians is like, it's like you need to get a wallet. You need to write down these 14 words and put it on a piece of paper and lock it away in a safe. And you can't reset your password like that. And by the way, and there were some companies, and I remember they lasted like maybe 18 months. They're saying, we're going to be the new distribution. We're going to be the new artist management. We're going to do crowdfunding for you. And then you can use our coin. And it's like, you're telling musicians that already, like fledgling musicians that are scraping for every dollar, that to play the stock market in sense, you're playing with here. Okay, well, you raised $10,000 of fiat, U.S. currency, and that's going to convert over to 20,000 of our coin. And we have that. Well, now you can use that to do your studio work in 3 months and help with your marketing in 4 months. And it's like, well, what's the coin value worth at that point? What if you crash? So, and is that something, you're talking about AI and everything. Is there an area that you're looking at the blockchain? Is that going into that?
So we don't want to actually build blockchain ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're not looking to get into that. Like, there's a couple of things that we don't want to get into. We don't want to get into crypto and blockchain, and we don't want to get into anything that has to do with audio creation itself. Those are the two things, and finally live streaming, which also kind of goes in audio. Mm-hmm. Those three things are so hefty on development. Like so far, I think the only company in the world, at least from my view, that I've seen do blockchain in the music industry and absolutely loved it is a company called Block Party, which does the ticketing through blockchain. That is genius. I would 100% partner with Block Party. I haven't really seen any others that I would off the bat, but then again, I'm also in my cave working every day. So if someone's looking to you a company that has to do with blockchain and crypto, you think Artist Republic would be helpful? Hell yeah, reach out to me. But that's the thing. So I don't think we'll ever build it ourselves. I mean, hell, I literally just put $100 into Bitcoin the other day. I'm not a Bitcoin person. I just, said, you know what, if it's going to be the future, I might as well have $100 in.
Right.
But, and that's kind of the thing. That's where I draw the line. But that's the thing with us is we like to keep it simple. Like I said, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just making it operate better.
I think so. That brings up a really interesting kind of question. And I think this can kind of like dovetail into, finding out how people can get involved and participate in Artist Republic. But the thing with blockchain and cryptocurrencies that can translate across borders and that kind of a thing, it's fundamental infrastructure. And I think when you try to sell infrastructure as a service, it's not sexy enough or common enough, democratic enough to really kind of be a service. But you can build services on it, and that's, I think, it has to be B2B. It sounds like what you've built is solving a lot of the infrastructure, but not making infrastructure sort of like the selling point, which is, I think, the right move. The question I have is, how do you square up that this is, it sounds like it's got sort of a B2C component in the sense of like direct to artists who then can use it to go direct to fan, but then also B2B in terms of like you can use this as a platform for independent labels and management companies to supplement their sort of like low head count. Can you tell me more about how you kind of get from the infrastructure side to, what you're actually selling to the marketplace?
So right now we're really only focusing on artists. That's our key. We will start expanding into other stuff like that, the businesses side, over the next couple months. And we really don't plan on facing consumers for a while. Consumers are too finicky. I think that's another reason a lot of music tech companies fail is they focus on the consumer too early. And the problem with that is, you have to have a balance when you bring consumers in, because if you have too many artists and not consumers, then the artists leave. And if you have too many consumers and not enough artists, then the consumers leave. We're not screwing with that. See, we're just building a network that has services for artists so we can make all the artists happy. And then we'll low-key add in the businesses, and then we'll add in, stuff like that. So that's really how we're doing it. And now with that, basically, like, people don't understand the infrastructure behind the platform. Like, you'll never see it. Like, for the next 3-4 months, we're only focusing on infrastructure improvements and building a better supply chain. Now, people that use the network are probably going to be like, oh, cool, it's just easier to use. They're not going to realize that it's literally been 6 months of 80-hour work every single day to the supply chain and make it better. So we're just really good at making the supply chain sexy and making it like double-sided. So like we roll out a service that does one thing on the front face, but like on the backside, it's doing like 15 things for us that people have no idea that it's doing that. And then when it connects to another tool, they're like, oh, I see how that connects.
Right on. So, we do have to wrap up. Sam, do you have any final thoughts there?
My final thoughts is really just, it sounds interesting. It sounds like you're in a competitive space, but you're doing it differently enough that it's not scary, but it's also not just iterative on the existing paradigm of, your digital music aggregators, as well as your sort of label services distributors that are trying to kind of sell a premium thing without doing too much premium, actually. So let the people know, how do they find you? How do they find Artist Republic, and how do they become a user?
Yeah, you can very easily find Artist Republic at artistrepublic.com. As you can see, it's spelled As you can see, it's spelled with a K wherever it is over here. Artistrepublic.com with a K. You can find LinkedIn, obviously, Nick Cianfaglione. I know the spelling's been up a couple times down here. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find the platform there. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Artist Republik. It's all the same thing. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right on. All right. Thank you so much, Nick. It was great chatting with you. We're going to wrap up, but hang out for a moment because we're going to come back after we roll the credits. All right. So thanks again, everybody. Okay. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you all for tuning in. If you want to continue the conversation, leave a comment below and stick around. And we always welcome more comments, chats. I want to say hi to Steele, Initiate, Andy, that was out there, and others. And I know there's a few more over there. I mean, we're on multiple platforms, but you can also find us more at musicindustrycity.com and on your preferred podcast player. So once again, thank you to everybody for tuning in. Have a rocking day. Peace.